I'm sitting in a sterile hospital waiting room, the kind that smells like industrial bleach and dying hope, holding a piece of paper that feels heavier than lead. My father, Peter, is slumped in a plastic chair across from me, his head in his hands, sobbing, a sound I've never heard from him in 24 years. He looks at me with eyes red from desperation and whispers, "You're the only one, Judy. You're her only chance." And in that moment, I realized I held the life of the woman who destroyed mine in the palm of my hand. I could save her, or I could watch her fade away, and for a split second, the darkness in me wanted to watch. I've spent my whole life being her shadow, her servant, her punching bag. Now the roles have shifted. If you want to understand how a daughter's love turns into a silent, cold war, and how a secret can rot a family from the inside out, stay with me. Because what I'm about to tell you is something I thought I'd take to my grave. Before we go any further, if you believe that even the darkest secrets deserve to be brought into the light, hit that subscribe button. You're going to need to be here for the end of this. It started when I was 6. That's the age when the world is supposed to be made of magic and bedtime stories. But for me, it became a world of silence. My mother died on a Tuesday. I remember the smell of her lavender soap and the way the house felt hollow the moment she left it. My father, Peter, was a man of granite. He didn't know how to grieve, so he just became harder. Less than a year later, the granite cracked, and Ann Jones walked through the gap. She brought her daughter, Donna, who was just a few months younger than me. First, it felt like a second chance. A new mother, a sister. But the moment the wedding rings were on, the mask slipped. Ann didn't want a daughter, she wanted a maid. She saw the way my father looked at me, the ghost of my mother in my eyes, and she hated me for it. I became the girl in the attic. Not literally, but emotionally. While Donna got the new dresses and the piano lessons, I got the chores. I was the one who scrubbed the floors until my knees bled. The one who made sure Ann's tea was exactly 170 degrees. The one who lived in the background of their perfect life. My only escape was a small, leather-bound diary my mother had given me. I filled it with stories, with the life I wanted to live, with the dreams of seeing my name on a bookstore window in Connecticut. But every time Ann found me writing, she'd find a way to punish me. "Dreaming again, Judy. The laundry doesn't do itself." She'd say it with a smile that never reached her eyes, a smile that felt like a razor blade. As the years crawled by, the resentment grew like a tumor. I watched her manipulate my father, slowly poisoning his mind against me. She'd tell him I was rebellious, that I was lazy, that I was difficult, just like my mother had been. And my father, tired and broken, believed her. He stopped looking at me. He stopped speaking to me. I was a ghost in my own home. But Ann had a secret of her own. A secret that smelled like expensive cologne and late-night whispers. I saw him first on a rainy Thursday. Walter Callahan, my father's best friend. He was at the house when my father was at work. I saw the way Ann looked at him, a look she never gave my father. I saw them in the garden, hidden by the overgrown hedges. That was the first time I realized that the woman who demanded total obedience from me was a liar and a cheat. I had the truth, but I was too afraid to speak it. I thought God had abandoned me in that house, leaving me to rot while the wicked prospered. But the real storm was only just beginning. The air in our house was always thick, like you were breathing in dust and old lies. By the time I was 19, I had become an expert at being invisible. I'd watch Ann and Walter from the upstairs window, my heart hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. Walter was everything my father wasn't, charismatic, loud, and dangerous. He'd come over with a bottle of wine, and Donna would be sent to her room with a new toy, while I was told to go clean the basement. I'd sit in the dark, damp cellar, listening to the muffled sounds of their laughter upstairs, feeling the weight of the secret pressing down on me. I wanted to scream. I wanted to run to my father's office and tell him his best friend was stealing his life. But I knew what would happen. Anne would cry, Donna would scream, and I would be the one thrown out onto the street. I started writing it all down. Not just my dreams anymore, but the truth. I chronicled every visit, every touch I witnessed, every lie untold. My diary became my weapon, even if I was too cowardly to use it. I'd imagine the day I'd finally publish it, the day the whole world would see and for who she really was. I'd see the book in the windows of the shops in Hartford, the cover bold and unforgiving. It was the only thing that kept me sane. But then, the physical world started to catch up with Anne's moral decay. It started with a cough, then a constant fatigue she couldn't explain away. She grew pale, her skin taking on a yellowish tint that even her expensive makeup couldn't hide. One night, the silence of the house was shattered by a thud. I ran to the hallway and found and collapsed at the bottom of the stairs. Her face was contorted in pain, her hands clutching her side. My father was frantic, scooping her up in his arms, his face a mask of terror. Even then, after everything she'd done to me, I felt a pang of something, not pity but a strange, cold fear. If she died, would the lies die with her? Or would they stay trapped in the walls of this house forever? The hospital became our second home. The diagnosis came down like a gavel in a courtroom. Total kidney failure. Both of them. The doctors talked about dialysis, about wait lists, about the slim chances of finding a donor in time. My father was a wreck. He spent every waking hour by her side, praying to a God he hadn't spoken to in years. Donna was useless, crying about how unfair it was that her mother was sick, as if the universe owed her a debt. Walter disappeared. The moment things got real, the man who had been whispering in Anne's ear was nowhere to be found. I watched my father's heart break twice, once for his wife's illness, and once for the silence of his best friend. He didn't know why Walter stopped calling. I did. But as I watched and wither away in that hospital bed, hooked up to machines that hummed like a death knell, I realized the ultimate irony was about to unfold. The tests for compatibility were starting, and the results would change everything. If this story has touched your heart so far, write the word confession in the comments below. It helps me know you're with me in this darkness. The doctors were methodical. First they tested my father. Incompatible. Then they tested Donna. She cried through the whole process, and when the results came back negative, she looked almost relieved. I wanted to help, I really did, she sobbed, but I saw the way she tucked her hair behind her ear, her eyes darting away. She didn't want to give up a piece of herself, not even for the woman who had spoiled her rotten. Then there was me. I didn't want to do it. I told myself I was doing it for my father, to show him I was the good daughter he had ignored for so long. But deep down, I wanted to see the look on the doctor's face when he told me I wasn't a match either. I wanted to be free of the obligation. The call came on a Tuesday, the same day of the week my mother died. The doctor's voice was calm, professional. Judy, we have the results. Quite extraordinary, actually. Even without a blood relation, you are a near-perfect match. You're the only one in the system who can save her. I hung up the phone and sat on the edge of my bed for 3 hours. The room felt like it was spinning. I looked at my diary, sitting on the nightstand. Hundreds of pages of evidence of her cruelty. And now, I was the only person on earth who could keep her heart beating. I went to the hospital that evening. The room was dim, the only light coming from the monitors, and looked like a skeleton covered in parchment. Her eyes were closed, her breathing shallow. My father was asleep in the chair. his face lined with a decade of added age. I stood at the foot of the bed and looked at her. I thought about the time she locked me in the garage in the middle of winter because I forgot to buy her specific brand of cigarettes. I thought about the way she laughed when she threw my mother's favorite vase into the trash, calling it clutter. I thought about Walter. Suddenly, Anne's eyes fluttered open. She saw me, and for the first time in my life, I saw fear in her eyes. Not the fear of a bully, but the fear of a soul that knows it's standing on the edge of the abyss. She reached out a trembling hand, her voice a dry rasp. "Judy," she whispered. I didn't move. I didn't take her hand. I just stood there, the weight of the secret and the weight of the choice pressing down on my chest until I thought my ribs would crack. "I know about Walter," I said, my voice barely a whisper. The monitor spiked. Her eyes widened, a flicker of the old and trying to find a lie, but she was too weak. She just closed her eyes, a single tear tracing a path through the gray skin of her cheek. She knew. She knew I had the power to save her, and she knew I had the power to destroy her. And the silence that followed was the loudest thing I've ever heard. I left the hospital and drove until the city lights faded into the dark woods of the Connecticut countryside. I pulled over near an old stone church, the kind my mother used to take me to when I was a toddler. I sat on the cold stone steps, the wind howling through the trees, and I screamed. I screamed at the sky, at the trees, at the God who felt 1,000,000 miles away. "Why me?" he yelled. "Why do I have to be the one to show mercy to a monster?" I wanted a sign. I wanted a lightning bolt to tell me it was okay to walk away. I wanted to feel justified in my hatred. But all I heard was the wind. And then a memory surfaced. Not a memory of Anne's cruelty, but a memory of my mother. She was sitting on the edge of my bed, her hair smelling of lavender, and she was reading from a worn-out Bible. "Forgive us our debts, as we forgive our debtors." I remember asking her what a debtor was, and she smiled and said, "It's someone who owes you something they can never pay back, Judy. And the only way to be free of them is to let the debt go." And owed me a childhood. She owed me a father. She owed me 20 years of peace. She could never pay it back. Not in 1,000 lifetimes. I realized then that if I let her die, I wasn't just losing her. I was becoming her. I was letting the bitterness and the secret win. I was letting Walter win. I went back to the house and found my father in the kitchen, staring at a cold cup of coffee. He looked up at me, and the hope in his eyes was so fragile it made my stomach ache. "The doctor called," he whispered. "He said you're a match. Judy, please. I can't lose her too." He didn't say, "I can't lose another wife." He said, "I can't lose her." He loved the lie. He loved the version of and she had sold him. And I realized that saving her wasn't just about her. It was about him. The next morning I met with the transplant coordinator. I signed the papers. I felt like I was signing away my own life, but as the pen hit the paper, a strange sense of calm washed over me. It wasn't happiness. It was a cold, hard resolve. I would save her life, but I wouldn't save her secret. I went to see Anne one last time before the surgery. She was more alert now, the news of the match giving her a desperate burst of energy. "Thank you, Judy," she sobbed, reaching for my hand again. This time I let her take it. Her skin felt like cold paper. "Don't thank me, Anne," I said, looking her straight in the eyes. "I'm not doing this for you. I'm doing this so I don't have to carry your ghost for the rest of my life. But when this is over, the truth comes out. All of it." The color drained from her face, but she didn't let go of my hand. She couldn't. I was her only lifeline, and we both knew it. The day of the surgery felt like a dream sequence from a movie. The bright lights, the hushed voices of the nurses, the cold metal of the gurney. I remember looking up at the ceiling as they wheeled me into the operating room, the fluorescent lights passing by like rhythmic heartbeats. Prayed. Not but for the strength to survive the transition. I felt a strange presence in that room. Not a ghost, but a warmth like a hand on my shoulder. It was the first time in years I didn't feel alone. I went under the anesthesia thinking of the bookstore window, the dream I had carried in my diary for so long. When I woke up, the world was a blur of pain and morphine. My side felt like it had been seared with a hot iron. But I was alive. A nurse leaned over me, her face kind. "The surgery was a success, Judy. You did great. She's stable. Your gift worked." I closed my eyes and drifted back into a fitful sleep. Over the next few days, the hospital room became a place of quiet reflection. My father was there every hour, alternating between my room and Anne's. He'd hold my hand and cry, thanking me over and over. I wanted to tell him then. I wanted to break the illusion. But every time I looked at his exhausted, hopeful face, the words died in my throat. Donna came to visit once. She brought flowers that smelled too strong and spent the whole time talking about how brave I was, but she couldn't look me in the eye. She knew she had failed the test of character, and the sight of me in that bed was a mirror she didn't want to look into. She left quickly, claiming she had a headache. I didn't care. I was focused on the recovery. On the 5th day I was allowed to walk. I shuffled down the hallway, clutching my 4-pole, and made my way to Anne's room. She was sitting up, color returning to her face. My kidney was working inside her. A piece of me was keeping her alive. It was a thought that made me feel both powerful and nauseous. She looked at me, and for a long time neither of us spoke. The machines beeped in the background, a steady mechanical reminder of the life we were sharing. "I called Walter," she said suddenly. Her voice was stronger now. Froze. "He didn't pick up. He blocked my number." She let out a short, bitter laugh. "You were right, Judy. He was a coward. I gave him everything, and he left me to die." She looked at me, and for the first time I didn't see the stepmother. I saw a broken woman. "I'm going to tell Peter," she whispered. "I can't live with your piece of me and keep the lie. It's burning me up inside." I looked at her, and the hatred I had carried for 20 years felt heavy, unnecessary. I realized that the truth didn't need me to wield it like a sword. It was doing the work all by itself. 3 months later, the house in Connecticut was sold. The granite had finally crumbled. When Anne confessed, my father didn't scream. He didn't throw things. He just went silent. He walked out of the house and didn't come back for 3 days. When he did, he told and he couldn't stay. He didn't hate her, he was just done. The lie had been the foundation of their marriage, and without it, there was nothing left but the rubble. Anne moved into a small apartment near the city, living on the edge of the life she had once stolen. Donna followed the money, finding a wealthy boyfriend and moving to New York, rarely calling any of us. I moved to a small cottage by the coast. I took my diaries with me. I spent a year editing them, turning the pain and the secrets into a narrative. I didn't write it to hurt Anne. I wrote it to find myself. I titled it The Debt of Mercy. The day I got the call from the publisher, I went down to the beach and watched the waves. I felt the scar on my side, a permanent reminder of the choice I made. It doesn't hurt anymore. It's just a part of me now. My father comes to visit me every Sunday. We're learning how to be father and daughter again, without the shadows in the room. We don't talk about it much, but when we do, there's no bitterness in his voice. Just a quiet sadness for what was lost. He told me last week that he started going back to church. He said he found a verse that reminded him of me. Be not overcome of evil, but overcome evil with good. I told him I didn't do it to be good. I did it to be free. The book was released last month. I walked into a small bookstore in Hartford, and there it was, stamped in the window, just like I had dreamed. I stood there for a long time looking at my name on the cover. A woman came up to me, holding a copy. She looked tired, her eyes rimmed with red. Did you write this? She asked. He nodded. She gripped the book to her chest and whispered, Thank you. Have a secret too. And after reading this, I think I'm finally ready to confess. I watched her walk away, and I realized that my mother was right. The only way to truly be free of a debt is to let it go. I looked up at the sky, the sun breaking through the clouds, and for the first time in my life, I didn't feel like a servant. Felt like a daughter. Felt like a writer. Felt forgiven. Because in the end, the greatest secret I ever kept wasn't Anne's affair. It was the fact that I was capable of a love that could heal even the woman who tried to break me. And that is the only confession that truly matters. I hope this story found you when you needed it most. If you're carrying a burden today, remember that the light is always waiting. Don't forget to subscribe and share your own thoughts in the comments. Until next time, keep your heart open. Goodbye.